Good morning, everybody. I'm Matt.
And I'm Tim. Thanks for watching this video.
Welcome to one of our new ideas. We're going to be trialing this new idea. Basically, we're going to be bringing you top fives every Monday. These are our top fives of the week. A lot of times these will be just one person in a greenhouse or one person picking some of their favorite top fives. Today we're kicking this series off with our top 5 favorite rare plants on Mr. Maple right now.
Now, we've got a lot of plants besides Japanese maples on Mr. Maple. And this is our chance today to highlight some of our plants we really love that you may have missed or you may have saw, but you'll get the backstory behind some of these cool plants. Make sure to like this video while you're watching, subscribe to our YouTube channel, sign up for our weekly emails on MrMaple.com, and make sure that you share this video with your gardening friends. They're probably gonna like this plant if they like rare plants.
We're gonna be premiering these Mondays at 9 a.m., just like our Tuesday 10 a.m. premieres. So be ready at 9 a.m. on these. We'll be in the chat discussing it with you. And if this is something you enjoy, let us know in the comment section below. We'll have lots more top 5s to come, a lot of maple top 5s, conifer top 5s, and just getting into some fun content that might otherwise get skipped on our channel, but needs to be talked about because these are some amazing plants. Numero uno.
Let's talk about a winter interest plant, or a variegated plant, or just a plant. If you're a sucker for a plant that's got all that white and green on it, you're gonna love Calicarpa japonica CG Murasaki.
Now this is a variegated Japanese beautyberry. This is gonna have dark purple flowers with some swirling white variegation. I love this plant as it kind of blows around the wind here in front of me. This is an amazing cultivar selection that was brought into our country by our friend Ted Stevens of Nurseries Caroliniana. Helped make this one popular. I know it's gotten out there under some different names, but that CG Murasaki is the original from Japan. Love this cultivar for its splotching of white splashed variegation. This is an interesting beautyberry. I think you should be growing in your garden. This makes a great companion plant to Japanese maples. One of the reasons we want to talk about a few of these are they pair so excellently with Japanese maples, but I think this is one you're going to want to be growing.
Well, Ted brought this back from a nursery in Osaka. And if you know anything about Japan, Osaka is where a lot of people are more friendly. And I shouldn't say it that way. I should say they're very louder and they're more likely to talk directly to you in Japan, where in other parts of the country, they may come over to help you and be very friendly to help you.
I think the best way to say it is we were the loud people everywhere else we went in Japan, and in Osaka we were the quiet people. Everybody's very loud and outgoing. It was like mixing Las Vegas and Asheville together, and it was just pandemonium and crazy. We really enjoyed Osaka, but it's certainly a flashier, louder part of Japan to be in.
And regular Japanese beautyberry gives some nice purple berries during the winter, but during the summer, they're very quiet. But This plant is loud year-round because it's got that white variegation on it. I mean, it just splashes. It gives you some year-round interest. It gives you some nice blooms in the late fall or early fall to late summer that then turn into those berries. So you get everything people love about Calicarpa japonica, but then you get a variegated form as well.
Right, now this one's gonna work zones 5 through 8. This is a great cutback shrub, so you can cut this one back in the fall months. It's an excellent plant for so many uses in the garden. It makes an awesome accompaniment. Typically, if you're not cutting this one back, it's about 4 to 6 foot in 10 years.
Love this plant, great variegation. And if you're a sucker for variegation like me, I know many of y'all are, you love variegated plants, you can't help but have CG Murasaki in your garden.
Yeah, you might not think of this one. It's a little more outside the box if you're here for the Japanese maples, but this is gonna go in your maple garden or your conifer garden, really any place in your garden, and look amazing. This is a swirling variegation, reminiscent of snow, and it has that really bright purple bloom to it, or flower to it, that really makes it excellent.
A lot of people use beautyberries during the winter months to almost as a background planting or somewhere up close near a walkway. I would like to plant this one near a walkway because you can really see that variegation up close and enjoy those winter interest beautyberries as well. I mean, it's got so many great uses, but that's a plant you should definitely have in your garden.
Number 2. Okay, so next up on the table, we have Hamamelis Virginiana Little Prospect. Now, this one could be on a million lists for me. It's probably one of my favorite native plants, hands down. It's kind of a nativar or a cultivar of an American native here. Little Prospect, maybe my favorite variegated witch hazel also. So this is an American witch hazel with some splash variegation. This one has dark green with that lime green border to it. One of my favorite variegated plants. I mean, I could do a whole top 5 maybe on natives. We might do that soon. But witch hazel, Little prospect coming in on our list as one of our favorite plants of the week.
Now this variegation is extremely stable. It was found as a variegated sport by our friend Robert Wilkinson, and it was just found on a witch hazel, Hamamelis virginiana. So it's a native that blooms in the fall with the yellow flowers. But this thing gives you really good, nice, crisp foliage year round. I mean, through the spring, summer, and then go into the fall, which is really unusual for a lot of Hamamelis, especially Hamamelis virginiana. This has some of the best foliage of any witch hazel, and then on top of that, it's variegated.
Yeah, you're gonna get those bright yellow blooms. Now our American native witch hazels go into those blooming seasons in the late fall. That's typically when they're in their bloom. It's a bright yellow bloom with a yellow calyx. Awesome flower on this one. So you're gonna get everything you love about the American native witch hazel, but with splash variegation. The darker green can almost get like an emeraldy blue green. It is so colorful. Now these are gonna wanna be very vase shaped in their habit. So they tend to be very vase shaped as an upright, and just the perfect palette for color in the garden. This has all the flash of any exotic ornamental, but in a native plant. So for your native plant collectors, you gotta have a little prospect in your garden.
I could see me doing a mass planting of these at my house.
High impact.
Yeah, I mean, it really gives a high impact with the, even that fall when you have those spider-like blooms just dangling from the branches of that yellow. Gives you some nice scent in the garden, but also as a good pollinator. It's just a plant that will just continually give that variegation. Amazing, amazing.
3.
Next up, we've got a plant that I think Matt and I wanted for so long. I mean, it was one of those plants that we just had to get a hold of. We saw a variegated osmanthus down at SFA Gardens. We saw some at Ted Stevens' place. We saw some at the J.C. Rouston Arboretum, and we just had to get our hands on it. Next is Osmanthus fragrans Yinbi Shuanghui.
I think of Garth going, Schwinn! Awesome plant. You're gonna love this variegated plant. This one almost has a camo-like pattern on it. Especially during this part of the season, you're gonna get white, light green, and then a darker green pattern all on the same leaf. So it's actually a tricolor leaf almost.
Almost
with
blue
that fading. Yeah, it's very unique in its color palette and an awesome plant to be growing in your landscape.
It's everything you love about Osmanthus fragrans, the fragrant sweet olive. It will bloom almost every single month that has the letter R in it. So November, January, February, March, April. It's one of those plants that will just keep blooming with white blooms on it, extremely fragrant, and this is a variegated form on top of that.
I think you stole that joke from the man who named it himself. I've heard Ted Stevens say that exact same thing. Ted actually brought this one into the country again. Another awesome introduction by our friend Ted Stevens. Shout out to Ted. We were gonna go to Japan with Ted, and then COVID happened. So we were actually planning a 2020 MrMaple and Ted trip to Japan. Maybe we'll have to make that happen still. That'd be a dream place to go with Ted.
It definitely would. And he actually, this is a plant that he brought in from China, as people say. An amazing plant with some amazing variegation. I mean, collectors have been seeking out the variegated, fragrant, sweet olive for years. And it's awesome to actually be able to offer that here on MrMaple.
Now, if you're not cutting this one back a lot for cuttings, this one's typically going to be 6 to 8 foot in 10 years. And this tree is going to work zone 7 through 10. So a really unique plant there. Now, Tim says in the description of this one, it's one your neighbor's going to covet, but one of the 10 commandments is not to covet. So I recommend not coveting this one, picking up Yinbi Shuanghui right now on MrMaple.com.
Then you can have your own, you won't have to covet.
Right.
But you can actually push zones a little bit on some fragrant tea olives into 6B if you give them some protection from those late winter winds that can dry them out. And we've seen some over at the research center over that if you give them some protection, they can actually survive even into the 6B
Siding is
zones.
very important in those colder zones, placing it where it has a little more natural protection up next to structures and areas where they're holding a little bit more residual heat. You can kind of push zones on this one. We're actually here in zone 6B here, and a really fun plant to be growing, but typically 7 through 10.
And if you tuck it in next to your house too, you can really enjoy those blooms whenever they've got that sweet, sweet aroma coming off the blooms.
Another excellent pairing with Japanese maple though, and a high drama plant on our top 5s for things we currently have on MrMaple.
Number 4.
So next up on our list, we've got Rhodea japonica Shiro botan. Now, I love this plant. I'm a big fan of the Japanese sacred lilies. They're very interesting. We were actually in Japan one time, and there was a entire plant show going on dedicated to Rhodea japonica. They're often considered living jewels in Japan, and they can go for astronomical rates. We'd seen some that went for over $250,000 for single plantings of these. They're often brought indoors in different areas and grown in special ikebana style vases. Amazing plant though. Shiro botan's next up on our list. I think you're going to want to check this one out.
Now, I like the Rhodea japonica quite a bit. They're sometimes called omotos in Japan. There's omoto collectors. They're sometimes called a Japanese sacred lily, and you can think of them almost like a evergreen hosta. I mean, you can kind of divide them out kind of like that. They've got kind of bulbs down there, and they're pretty spectacular. Shiro botan is kind of unique in that the summer flushes in June and July will often have more variegation than your growth that you've got during the spring and the fall. And like all Rhodea japonica, it actually gets little green spikes that come up in late fall to early winter, but those flower spikes turn into orange-red berries. And these little orange-red berries that pop up around the base of the plant give the plant an additional winter interest out there in the landscape and garden.
Now, what makes Shiro botan exceptional is its variegation. Some of those variegated ones, especially some of the more crescent ones, they can go for astronomical prices at some of these shows. It's almost like high and koi trading. Some really special plants here to be growing. I love them for their winter interest. I mean, it's going to be there all year. This is an evergreen plant, to be clear, and it's very unique. It has that striping deep into the middle of the leaf variegation on Shiro botan with bright white on light green. Really gives it something extra on this one. I think it makes a great pairing with Japanese maples. Now, this is a perfect plant to be thinking of for your shade gardens. These like a little bit more shade. You definitely want to get these in at least early morning sun, late day shade at minimum. But as a shade garden plant, excellent to be growing. It's going to go out there and look awesome around in a conifer garden or Japanese maple garden. Year-round interest on this one. And I can't say enough about Rhodea japonica, but I think they're a plant that we're going to keep doing more of here at Mr. Maple. But I think it's a plant that you should definitely be checking out.
They're a plant that you don't want to give too much water. You don't want boggy or wet, but an adequate amount of water like a woodland garden, they're going to thrive and do fantastic in. Shiro botan with that white streaking and green streaking in the darker green leaf gives this plant something extra special in the landscape and garden. It can grow outside in zones 6 through 10, but this is also a plant you can bring indoors and grow as an indoor plant. Like Matt talked about, it can be grown in containers. It's very popular in Japan to be grown in a small container on someone's kitchen table,
Right.
On an end table as you walk into the house, and it is sort of just like that bringing the garden inside to welcome you into the house.
Yeah, they're actually often grown in small decorative containers in that indoor setting, almost like an indoor bonsai, if you will, think of it like that, in that ikebana style with a small container. And those can be quite collectible and expensive, just the containers for these. Now, when you're pairing the really cool, interesting types, like Shiro botan, this one used to be very expensive, and it's since gotten a little bit more in the trade. We've been trying to get it out there for you more too. But they can be quite heavily sought after for those unique traits, especially the more crested and variegated styles. This one is one of my favorite variegated Rhodea japonica. It just gives a real splash of color there in the garden, and again, year-round. Give me 5.
So next up, we've got Styrax japonicas, evening light. One of those, it's a darker foliage Japanese snowbell.
Yeah, this is a Japanese snowbell that has some of the darkest foliage of anything we're growing here at Mr. Maple. It catches my eye, especially when it emerges in the early spring with that dark maroon. It actually fades to an even darker shade, making it pair well amazingly with any of the other plants on this table, but also with Japanese maples. Now, snowbells are famous for those flowers, and this one's going to have a white flower that fades to pink with a kind of a yellowish bloom to it. Awesome coloration to this. It is a unique flowering plant that brings a ton of drama to the garden. One of my favorite things about it, though, is that foliage. That foliage is so dark, it's going to show out. It's going to really look awesome next to other plants in the landscape, especially greens. It's one of the closest to black, dark colors you can get in a plant.
And this is a plant you want to give partial light to full sunlight to. The Japanese snowbells really give you some really nice blooms, and the really special thing about evening light is that darker foliage. I mean, that darker foliage gives some nice contrast out there in the landscape and garden with a more upright habit this is a plant that can give you some good color contrast out in the garden and the landscape in zones 5 through 9. Styrax japonicas is a plant everyone loves to enjoy in the garden, and now you can enjoy it with that darker foliage.
So Evening Light was found as a chance seedling in the Netherlands. It's an excellent plant to be growing. These are going to be 6 to 8 foot in 10 years and more of a vase type shape. Very nice and full habit to it, which makes an awesome palette for all that flowering. Definitely check this one out. We have some excellent sizes in these right now. We're shooting this video in September of 2022, so these sizes are indicative of right now. If you're watching this a year from now, our sizes could definitely be slightly larger or slightly smaller.
So what do you think of our 5 selections for this week on rare plants? Pretty spectacular, huh?
Let us know in the comment section if you'd like more of these top 5 videos. Also, let us know what your favorite plant we talked about today is. We're going to be premiering these videos on Monday, just to kind of talk about some of our favorite plants. You know, we're big plant geeks here. We can't talk enough about the things we're doing here that get us excited. We're passionate about them, and we're looking for more ways to share that passion with you guys. So I hope you enjoy these top 5 videos. We're going to be premiering our top 5s of the week every Monday at 9 a.m. So be tuning in for those. I'll be jumping in that chat and talking with you guys. It's going to be a fun accompaniment to our 10 at 10 on Tuesdays. So sign up for, subscribe to our channel right now so you'll get notified. And if you hit that bell, you'll get a notification whenever we go live or premiere a video.
Take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.